Tuesday night, 11:47 p.m. Rachel Torres sat at her desk in her tiny Seattle apartment, scrolling through Reddit for the third hour straight. She should have been asleep. Work started at 9, and her boss already gave her that look yesterday when she showed up yawning. But sleep could wait. She'd fallen down one of those internet rabbit holes again. It started with a post about weird mobile games. Someone mentioned a forum where people shared apps that got rejected from official stores. Creepy stuff, experimental stuff, things that were too glitchy or strange for Apple or Google to approve. Rachel loved that kind of thing. She was a software developer by day, breaking apart code and putting it back together. At night, she collected digital oddities like other people collected vinyl records. The forum looked like it hadn't been updated since 2015. Ancient memes, broken image links, posts in half a dozen languages. She was about to close the tab when she saw it. A thread titled, "I don't think this is human-made." The original post was simple. Someone had found an app with no developer name, no company logo, nothing. Just a file and some symbols nobody could read. The poster included a rough translation done by some image recognition software, Universal Compatibility Challenge. Most replies called it a hoax. Someone said it was probably a crypto mining scam. Another person warned it was definitely malware and anyone who downloaded it was an idiot. But one comment caught Rachel's attention. "Installed it. My phone got hot. The puzzles inside are insane. I can't tell if this is genius or just broken. Gave up after level 43. My brain hurts." Rachel grinned. Her brain hurt sounded like a challenge. She downloaded the file. Her antivirus software immediately freaked out, throwing up 5 different warnings. She ignored them all and clicked install anyway. The app icon appeared on her screen. It looked like a geometric shape that shouldn't exist in 3 dimensions, colors that didn't quite make sense. Staring at it too long made her eyes water. She tapped it. The loading screen showed those alien symbols again, rotating and shifting. Then the interface appeared and Rachel sat up straighter in her chair. Okay, this is actually cool. The first puzzle showed a grid of shapes. Simple enough. Match the pattern, drag and drop, move to the next level. Rachel breezed through it in 15 seconds. Level 2 was harder. The shapes moved. She had to predict where they'd be, not where they were. Took her a minute, but she got it. Level 5 introduced colors that hurt to look at. Not regular colors. Something in between, something that made her head buzz. Level 12 had math that didn't work right. 2 plus 2 equaled 7 in this puzzle and she had to figure out why. It took her 20 minutes of scribbling on paper before she understood the logic. The system wasn't using base 10. Once she shifted her thinking, she solved it. By level 30, she'd finished her leftover pizza without tasting it. Her coffee had gone cold. The app kept telling her information she didn't understand. Calibrating for species parameters. Testing cognitive flexibility across dimensional barriers. Analyzing pattern recognition in non-Euclidean space. Rachel treated it all like flavor text in a weird indie game. Some levels were stupidly easy. Like child's play. Others seemed designed by someone who thought in 4 dimensions while experiencing time backwards. More than once, she solved a puzzle by accident, doing something the app clearly didn't expect. The system would pause, recalculate, then reluctantly give her a green checkmark. "Yeah, I'm breaking your game," she muttered, grinning. Around level 2000 she noticed something. The app was learning from her. When she found an exploit, a way to skip steps or solve things faster, the next puzzles would try to patch it. But Rachel was faster. She'd find a new angle, a new loophole. It became a game within the game. Her versus the app's logic. 3 hours flew by like nothing. Her eyes burned. Her brain felt like it had run a marathon. But she couldn't stop. Each level unlocked something interesting. Each puzzle showed her something impossible. At 2:34 a.m. she reached level 10,000. The final puzzle was weird. Not hard, just weird. It showed her a choice between 3 symbols. No instructions. No hints. She stared at them for 5 minutes before randomly picking the middle one. The screen flashed white. Text appeared in perfect English. Assessment complete. Results transmitted to central evaluation. Expected completion time for most species, 4 to 6 cycles. Your completion time, 1 rotation. Congratulations. Evaluation pending. Rachel blinked. Cycles? Rotation? Was this game really committing to the alien bit? A notification appeared. Status, reviewed. Decision, summoned. Summoned? Rachel laughed. Okay, game. Sure. She closed the app and plugged her phone into the charger. Her battery was at 3%. How was that possible? She charged it fully before starting. Rachel crawled into bed, still smiling. That was the weirdest app she'd ever downloaded. Tomorrow she'd poke around in its code, see what made it tick. Maybe reverse engineer it. Post about it on her own developer blog. She fell asleep in minutes. Outside her window, something in orbit turned its attention toward Seattle. Coordinates locked. Target identified. Retrieval authorized. Rachel woke up to her entire building shaking like an earthquake hit. Her alarm clock crashed off the nightstand. Books tumbled from shelves. The picture frames on her wall rattled so hard one of them cracked. She rolled out of bed, heart hammering, fully expecting the ceiling to cave in. Then she heard it. A sound that didn't belong in the real world. Low, thrumming like a bass note played through reality itself. It made her teeth vibrate. Made her bones hum. She stumbled to the window and looked outside. Oh my God. Hovering above her apartment building, maybe 200 feet up, was something impossible. A ship. Had to be a ship. But it looked like someone had carved it out of crystal and starlight. Massive didn't cover it. The thing was bigger than 3 city blocks pressed together, hanging in the air like gravity forgot it existed. Pieces of it rotated slowly, geometric sections moving independently. Light poured off its surface in colors that shouldn't exist. The same colors from that stupid app. Rachel's phone exploded with notifications. Emergency alerts. News apps. Text messages from her mom, her sister, her coworkers. Everyone was seeing this. She looked down at the street. People poured out of buildings, pointing up, filming with their phones. Someone was screaming. Car alarms wailed. In the distance she heard sirens. Then she saw them. Military jets. 4 of them, screaming across the sky, circling the ship like angry wasps. They didn't fire. Probably smart. What were missiles going to do against something that size? Rachel grabbed her phone with shaking hands. 27 missed calls. 63 texts. She ignored them all and opened Twitter. The ship was trending worldwide. Videos from every angle. People in Seattle losing their minds. Talking heads already on TV speculating about aliens, invasions, first contact, end times. Her apartment shook again. This time it wasn't the whole building. Just her floor. Just her apartment. A beam of light punched through her window. Not breaking the glass. Passing through it like the glass wasn't there. The light was blue and white and moved like liquid, scanning across her walls, her furniture, her face. Rachel froze. Couldn't breathe. The light lingered on her for 3 seconds that felt like 3 years. Then her doorbell rang. Except it wasn't her doorbell. The sound was wrong. Too deep. Too perfect. It resonated in her chest like a gong. She walked to the door. Don't open it, her brain screamed. This is insane. Call the police. Call the military. Call someone. But her hand was already on the doorknob. She opened it. Nothing. Empty hallway. Mrs. Patterson's door across the hall was still closed. She could hear Mr. Kim's TV playing too loud like always. Then the air in front of her rippled. A figure materialized. Tall, humanoid shape but made of something that looked like liquid mercury. It flowed and shifted, held together by something invisible. Where its face should be, there was just a smooth surface that reflected everything. Rachel's brain shut down. This wasn't real. Couldn't be real. The figure's mouth area moved. Sound came out but not from its body. From everywhere. A translation happening in real time, words forming directly in her head. Rachel Torres. You have been summoned by Emperor Dalton of the Consolidated Dominion. Do not be alarmed. This is the highest honor your species has yet received. Please remain calm during transport. Transport? Wait, what? The light swallowed her. 1 second she was in her doorway wearing pajama pants and an old college t-shirt. Next second she was somewhere else. Rachel staggered, nearly fell. The floor under her feet was solid but looked like it was made of frozen lightning. She was in a hallway. No, a corridor. Massive. The ceiling stretched up so high it disappeared into darkness. The walls curved in ways that made her depth perception scream. And there were aliens. Dozens of them. Hundreds maybe. Walking, floating, crawling. Things with too many legs. Things with no legs. A creature that looked like a tree made of eyeballs turned to stare at her as she appeared. Something that resembled a floating jellyfish made of fire drifted past overhead. They all stopped when they saw her. Complete silence. Every single being in that corridor froze and stared. Rachel stood there in her pajamas, no shoes, hair a mess, looking like she'd just rolled out of bed. Because she had. The Mercury being appeared beside her. Please follow. The Emperor is waiting. I need shoes, Rachel said. Her voice came out as a squeak. Unnecessary. Follow. They started walking. The other aliens parted like a wave, creating a path. Rachel caught pieces of sound as she passed. Not English. Not any language. But somehow the ship, or her brain, was translating fragments. Actually completed the gauntlet. In one rotation, impossible. Thought it was a system error? But she's so primitive, look at her. That last one stung. Rachel looked down at her Pokemon t-shirt. Yeah, maybe not the best first impression. They passed through a doorway that didn't exist until they reached it. Then another. Then another. Each room was bigger and stranger than the last. One had a garden that grew upward and downward simultaneously. Another had windows showing places that definitely weren't Earth. Stars too close. Planets with rings. Something that looked like a sun right there, close enough to touch. Rachel's legs felt like rubber. This was too much. Her brain couldn't process it. Yesterday her biggest problem was a bug in her code at work. Now she was walking through an alien ship in her pajamas. They reached a massive door. It was carved with symbols that moved, changing shape as she watched. Through here, the Mercury being said. The Emperor waits. Speak only when addressed. Show respect. Your species' future may depend on this meeting. My species' future? I just downloaded an app. Yes, you did. The door opened. The throne room beyond was the size of a football stadium. At the far end, on a throne made of living crystal that pulsed with inner light, sat something that might have been a being or might have been a force of nature that learned to sit down. Emperor Dalton. Around him stood dozens of aliens in elaborate clothing or armor or energy fields. All of them turned to look at Rachel. She stood in the doorway barefoot, exhausted, terrified, and completely out of her depth. The Emperor's voice filled the room. It didn't sound angry or kind. Just curious. Rachel Torres. You completed the gauntlet in 3 hours. This should have been impossible. Explain yourself. Rachel looked at the most powerful beings in the galaxy. I honestly thought it was just a weird game, she said. Somewhere in the court, something that might have been laughter echoed. This was going to be a very long day. Rachel stood in front of the most powerful beings in the galaxy wearing a Pokemon t-shirt and no shoes. This was not how she imagined first contact going. Emperor Dalton didn't look like anything she could describe. 1 second he seemed solid, made of crystal that glowed from within. The next second he looked like pure energy barely holding a shape. His presence filled the room like pressure before a storm. Rachel Torres, the Emperor's voice rumbled through her skull. Not loud but impossible to ignore. The Gauntlet of Dalton has existed for 4,000 years. It was designed by the greatest minds across 200 worlds. The fastest recorded completion was 17 months, achieved by the collective of Terminus, a hive mind of 10,000 individuals working as one. Rachel swallowed hard. The room was dead silent. Dozens of alien eyes, sensors, and things she couldn't identify all focused on her. You completed it in 3 hours and 12 minutes. Alone. While consuming what our sensors indicate was a primitive grain-based food product. Pizza, Rachel said quietly. It was pizza. A ripple went through the court. One of the beings, something that looked like an insect the size of a refrigerator, clicked its mandibles rapidly. The translation came through, impossible. The data must be corrupted. Another advisor stepped forward. This one was almost human-looking, except its skin shifted colors like oil on water. Your species doesn't have faster-than-light travel. You haven't even left your own star system. Your mathematics are barely adequate for basic quantum calculations. How could you possibly? I didn't know I was being tested, Rachel interrupted. Every alien in the room turned sharply. Apparently interrupting was a big deal here. Sorry, I just mean, I thought it was a game. A really weird, broken game. The Emperor leaned forward. His throne hummed. Explain your methods. How did you solve the dimensional puzzles? The temporal paradoxes? The consciousness-splitting exercises? Rachel's brain was still catching up to all of this. Okay, the dimensional ones? Those puzzles where the shapes moved in impossible ways? I stopped trying to understand them logically. I let my eyes go unfocused like those old Magic Eye posters. The pattern showed up after a few seconds. The insect being clicked again. She used involuntary optical defect compensation as a problem-solving mechanism? And the time paradoxes, Rachel continued, gaining a bit of confidence. Those were actually kind of fun. You had to stop thinking about time as a line. More like a choose-your-own-adventure book. Multiple paths happening at once. I just picked the path that looked right. A crystalline entity that looked like a living diamond spoke up. Its voice sounded like wind chimes. She solved temporal mechanics through intuitive narrative structure? That's absurd. And the consciousness exercises, the oilskin advisor said. Those require splitting one's awareness across multiple parallel thought streams simultaneously. Most species need cybernetic augmentation to even attempt them. Rachel shrugged. I don't know what to tell you. I just thought about multiple things at once? Like when you're cooking dinner while texting a friend and half watching TV. Your brain is already doing 3 things. I just applied that to the puzzles. The entire court erupted. Not in anger. In chaos. Aliens arguing with each other in a dozen languages. The translation in Rachel's head became a jumbled mess of overlapping voices. Emperor Dalton raised one crystalline hand. Silence fell instantly. Show me, he commanded. The floor in front of Rachel lit up. A holographic puzzle appeared, floating in the air. It looked similar to ones from the app, but bigger, more complex. Shapes within shapes, moving through angles that hurt to look at. This is a level 70,000 puzzle, the Emperor said. It typically takes advanced species 6 months to solve. You have 5 minutes. Begin. Rachel stared at it. Her heart hammered. Every being in the room watched her like she was a lab experiment. She took a breath and studied the puzzle. Okay. Patterns. There were always patterns. The shapes moved independently, but... No, wait. There. They were connected. Not physically, but through timing. When the blue shape rotated, the red one shifted exactly 3 seconds later. She reached out and touched the hologram. It responded to her hand. She started moving pieces, not thinking too hard about it, just following what felt right. The insect being clicked urgently. She's not calculating. She's guessing. No, the diamond entity said slowly. She's not guessing. She's recognizing. Pattern recognition at an instinctual level. Rachel blocked them out. Focus. The puzzle was like music in a way. Rhythm and timing. She moved pieces faster, finding the flow of it. There was a logic here, just not the kind you could write down in equations. 3 minutes and 40 seconds later, the puzzle chimed. Solved. The court fell silent again. Fascinating, Emperor Dalton said. He sounded genuinely impressed. Analyze her solution. Holographic data exploded around the puzzle, showing Rachel's thought process. Numbers and symbols she didn't understand filled the air. The oilskin advisor studied it closely. She didn't solve it correctly. Rachel's stomach dropped. She solved it, the advisor continued, through a method that shouldn't work. She ignored the primary mathematical framework entirely. She treated it as a spatial puzzle instead of a dimensional one. She found shortcuts that don't exist in our logic systems. She essentially hacked it. The insect being moved closer to Rachel, studying her like a specimen. Your species is primitive. Pre-contact. Isolated. Yet you demonstrate cognitive flexibility beyond advanced civilizations. How is this possible? Rachel bristled at being called primitive. Maybe your advanced civilizations overthink things. Sometimes the simple answer works better than the complicated one. The Emperor made a sound that might have been laughter. Or a threat. Hard to tell. Rachel Torres, you present a problem, he said. Your species is unknown to the galactic community. By all measurements, humans should be centuries away from space travel, millennia from joining the Dominion. Yet you completed a test that proves exceptional cognitive ability. He stood. The throne room seemed to darken around him. This changes everything. Your species must be evaluated. If one human can do this, what can your entire population achieve? Are you a threat? An asset? An anomaly? Rachel's mouth went dry. I'm just a software developer from Seattle. I'm not special. That, the Emperor said, is precisely what concerns us. If you are not special among your kind, then humanity is the most dangerous species we have encountered in 3,000 years. The room fell deadly quiet. You will undergo formal evaluation, Emperor Dalton declared. 7 trials across 7 days. You will compete against our finest minds. We will determine if humanity deserves a place in the galactic community, or if your world should remain isolated until you are ready. And if I fail? Rachel asked. Then Earth will be placed under quarantine for the next 1,000 years. Your species will develop alone, untouched by galactic influence, until the Dominion decides otherwise. Rachel felt the weight of 7 billion people suddenly on her shoulders. No pressure though, right? She said weakly. The Emperor's crystalline form seemed to smile. None whatsoever, Rachel Torres. None whatsoever. They gave Rachel actual clothes. Finally. Not human clothes. some kind of fabric that adjusted to her size and felt like wearing air. It was plain gray, which she appreciated. At least she didn't look like she just rolled out of bed anymore. They also gave her a room. Calling it a room felt wrong. It was more like a pocket dimension. The walls showed views of space that changed every hour. The bed was comfortable but floated 3 feet off the ground. The bathroom had a shower that cleaned her with light instead of water. Rachel barely slept that first night. How could she? The fate of Earth apparently rested on her doing well on some alien tests. No pressure. Day 1 started with a knock on her door. Not the Mercury being this time. This was something new. A robot maybe? It looked like a floating metal sphere with too many eyes. Counselor Torres, your first evaluation begins in 20 minutes. Please follow. I'm not a counselor, Rachel muttered, but she followed anyway. The testing chamber was huge. Stands lined the walls, filled with aliens who'd apparently come to watch. Great. An audience. Rachel's stomach twisted into knots. In the center stood her opponent for the first test. A being that looked like living crystal, similar to the Emperor but smaller, more delicate. Geometric patterns flowed across its surface like thoughts made visible. I am Dr. Venn, the being said. Its voice sounded like glass chimes. I have studied strategic mathematics for 300 years. Today's evaluation is a simulation. We will each command a fleet in theoretical combat. The goal is total victory. A holographic battlefield appeared between them. Hundreds of tiny ships, planets, asteroid fields. It looked like the most complicated chess game ever invented. You may begin, announced one of the court officials. Dr. Venn moved instantly. Ships deployed in perfect formation, mathematical precision in every movement. Rachel watched, trying to understand the pattern. She'd played strategy games before. StarCraft, Civilization, even chess. But this was different. More variables. More dimensions. Some ships could move through time, arriving before they left. Others existed in multiple places at once. Her brain hurt just looking at it. Dr. Venn was clearly a master. Every move was calculated, efficient, perfect. No wasted energy. No unnecessary risks. Pure mathematical optimization. Rachel bit her lip. She couldn't now calculate a being that thought in pure math. That was suicide. But she didn't have to play by those rules. She moved her fleet erratically. Ships in weird positions. Formations that made no strategic sense. Dr. Venn's patterns shifted, adjusting to counter her moves. Your strategy is chaotic, Dr. Venn observed. Inefficient. You will lose. Maybe, Rachel said. She kept making strange moves. Sacrificing ships for no apparent gain. Leaving gaps in her defense. Dr. Venn exploited every mistake, punishing her errors exactly as the math predicted. Then Rachel sprang the trap. All those mistakes had positioned Dr. Venn's fleet exactly where she wanted them. Not through calculation but through intuition. She'd been herding Dr. Venn like a sheepdog with sheep, making the mathematical moves so obvious that Venn couldn't resist taking them. Rachel's scattered fleet suddenly coordinated. 3 simultaneous strikes from unexpected angles. Dr. Venn's perfect formation shattered. The simulation ended. Victory, Rachel Torres. The watching aliens murmured. Dr. Venn's crystalline surface pulsed rapidly. You made 17 critical strategic errors. You should have lost. How did you? I didn't think about the math, Rachel said. I thought about you. You optimize everything. So I gave you obvious optimal moves that were actually traps. Dr. Venn stood silent for a long moment. You weaponized predictability. Fascinating. 1 down. 6 to go. The second test came 2 days later. This time her opponent was Commander Kira, a being that looked like an octopus made of water, contained in a floating sphere. Kira's species were telepaths, naturally able to read emotional states and predict behavior. This evaluation tests negotiation, Kira explained. We have a resource allocation problem. 3 species, 1 supply of a critical resource. We must reach an agreement all parties accept. Begin. The simulation showed 3 alien civilizations, each desperate for the same rare element. All had legitimate needs. All had the military power to take it by force. War seemed inevitable. Kira moved through the negotiation like a professional, reading each species' emotional state, offering exactly what they needed to hear. Within minutes, Kira had 2 of the 3 species ready to agree to a split. Rachel watched and learned. Kira was incredible, but there was a pattern. The commander relied heavily on emotional reading, on sensing what others wanted. So Rachel did something unexpected. She stopped wanting things. She cleared her mind, went emotionally neutral, and approached the problem differently. Not from emotion, but from pure problem solving. What if the resource could be synthesized? What if there was an alternative? What if the scarcity was artificial? She proposed a solution nobody had considered. Instead of splitting the resource, she suggested sharing the technology to create it. All three species working together, pooling knowledge. Kira's watery form rippled in surprise. That option was not in the simulation parameters. Then change the parameters, Rachel said. Real problems don't come with fixed rules. The simulation accepted her solution. The three species formed an alliance instead of going to war. Commander Kira bowed, water sloshing in the sphere. You did not play the game. You changed it. Your species thinks very differently than ours. The test continued, day after day. Each one harder than the last. She faced a philosophy debate with a being that experienced time non-linearly, seeing past and future simultaneously. Rachel won by arguing from the perspective of the present moment, something her opponent couldn't fully grasp. She solved an engineering problem that had stumped the Dominion's best scientists for years. Not through advanced knowledge, but by approaching it like a software bug. Break it down, isolate variables, test solutions. She mediated a cultural dispute between species with completely incompatible worldviews. Her human brain, used to holding contradictory ideas, could understand both sides simultaneously without going crazy. The final test came on day 7. The watching crowd had grown. Apparently word had spread. The human was winning. Her last opponent was the insect being from the throne room. High Scholar Tekken, master strategist and combat theorist. This is a crisis simulation, Tekken clicked. 3 species have been at war for months. All previous mediators have failed. You have 1 hour to propose a solution. If you fail, thousands die. Begin. Rachel studied the scenario. 3 alien species, totally different biology and psychology. Different values, different needs, different ways of thinking. They'd been fighting over territory, resources, old grudges. Every conventional solution had been tried. Peace treaties, resource sharing, territorial divisions. Nothing worked. The hatred ran too deep. Rachel closed her eyes and thought about Earth. About human history. All the wars, all the conflicts, all the times people thought peace was impossible. Then she thought about what always changed things. Not logic. Not perfect solutions. Stories. She spent 55 minutes crafting a narrative. A shared history for all 3 species. Not based on their conflicts but on their commonalities. She found threads in their cultures that overlapped, values they all shared but expressed differently. She created a framework where their differences became strengths instead of weaknesses. It wasn't a political solution. It was a cultural one. When she presented it, the simulation went quiet. Processing. Then, solution accepted. Projected peace duration, indefinite. High Scholar Tekken's mandibles clicked rapidly. In 300 years of study, I never considered cultural narrative restructuring. You solved a military problem with a story. Rachel smiled. Humans are really good at stories. Emperor Dalton's voice boomed across the chamber. 7 tests. 7 victories. Rachel Torres, you have proven that humanity possesses remarkable cognitive flexibility. Your species thinks in ways we cannot predict, solves problems we cannot anticipate. He paused. The entire room held its breath. I have made my decision regarding humanity's place in the galaxy. Rachel's heart pounded. This was it. Everything came down to this moment. But first, the Emperor continued, we must discuss what role you will play in the future. Rachel stood in the center of the throne room. 7 days of tests had left her exhausted, but her mind was sharp. Adrenaline would do that. Emperor Dalton rose from his crystalline throne. The room darkened around him, light bending in ways that made Rachel's eyes hurt. Rachel Torres. You have exceeded every expectation. You have defeated our finest strategists, philosophers, and problem solvers. Some of these beings have studied their crafts for centuries. You bested them in days. The assembled court murmured agreement. Rachel saw Dr. Venn in the crowd, geometric patterns flowing across its surface. Commander Kira's watery sphere bobbed in acknowledgement. Even High Scholar Tekken clicked its mandibles in what might have been respect. Your performance proves that humanity possesses unique cognitive abilities, the Emperor continued. Adaptability. Creative problem solving. The capacity to think outside established frameworks. These are rare qualities in the galaxy. Rachel's stomach tightened. Here it comes. Therefore, I offer you a position on my inner council. You would advise the Dominion on matters of strategy, diplomacy, and crisis resolution. You would have access to technologies beyond your imagination. Life extension treatments that could grant you thousands of years. Cognitive enhancements that would expand your mind tenfold. Neural interfaces connecting you to the accumulated knowledge of 200 civilizations. The room erupted in shocked whispers. Several advisors looked outraged. The oil-skinned being who'd questioned Rachel earlier actually stepped forward. Your Magnificence, surely you cannot be serious. She is human. Primitive. Her species has not earned. Silence. The Emperor's voice cut through the protest like a blade. I have made my offer. Rachel Torres, do you accept? This was it. Everything she could ever want. Immortality. Power. Knowledge beyond human comprehension. A chance to explore the galaxy, to learn secrets humanity wouldn't discover for thousands of years. Rachel looked at the Emperor. At the court. At all these advanced beings who saw her as a curiosity, a useful tool, maybe even a threat. I have conditions, she said. The room went dead silent. You could have heard a pin drop in space. You dare negotiate with the Emperor? Someone hissed. Emperor Dalton raised a hand. His crystalline form seemed almost amused. Speak. Rachel took a breath. Her heart hammered but her voice stayed steady. First condition. I stay human. Completely human. No life extension. No cognitive enhancement. No uploading my brain into a computer or whatever you do here. I serve as I am, and when my time is up, I die like any other human. The court exploded. Aliens arguing in a dozen languages. The translation in Rachel's head became chaos. She refuses the Emperor's gifts? Madness. Why would anyone choose mortality? Emperor Dalton silenced them again. Explain your reasoning. Rachel had thought about this during the test, especially after beating Dr. Venn. You said humans have unique cognitive abilities, creative thinking, adaptability. But where does that come from? It comes from our limitations. We're creative because we're weak. We had to be. For millions of years we were prey animals. Slow, fragile, no claws or fangs. We survived by thinking differently, by using tools, by adapting. She pointed to her head. Our brains evolved under pressure. We innovate because we have to. We think outside the box because we can't survive inside it. If you enhance me, if you remove my limitations, you remove what makes me valuable to you. I'll just become another long-lived being with a standard enhanced mind. Dr. Venn's surface pulsed. She understands that her weakness is her strength. Paradoxical but logical. And the mortality? The Emperor asked. You would choose to age and die? Yes, Rachel said firmly. Because mortality gives life meaning. Humans create, love, and fight harder because we know our time is limited. We burn bright because we burn fast. You want human perspective on your council? Then you need an actual human, not an augmented copy that lives for 10,000 years and forgets what it means to be mortal. The room fell quiet. Rachel couldn't tell if they thought she was wise or insane. Your second condition? The Emperor prompted. Earth gets protectorate status. You don't invade, don't exploit, don't interfere. Humanity gets 100 years to develop on our own before joining the galactic community. We need time to grow up, to figure things out ourselves. If you show up now with all your technology, we'll become dependent. We'll be your clients, not your partners. High Scholar Tekken clicked thoughtfully. She wants her species to maintain independence. To earn their place rather than have it given. Exactly, Rachel said. When humanity finally reaches the stars on our own, we'll be ready. We'll have something real to contribute. But if you just hand us everything now, you'll stunt our development. We'll never reach our potential. The oil-skinned advisor shook its head. 100 years is nothing. Your species could destroy itself in that time. Nuclear war. Environmental collapse. Artificial intelligence gone wrong. You would refuse our guidance. We'll make our own mistakes and learn from them, Rachel said. That's how humans work. Yeah, we might mess up. But we'll figure it out. We always do. Emperor Dalton was quiet for a long moment. His crystalline form pulsed with inner light, patterns shifting as he considered. You reject immortality. You reject enhancement. You demand isolation for your species. Most beings would see this as foolishness. Most beings aren't human, Rachel replied. The Emperor's form shifted. That sound again, the one that might have been laughter. Rachel Torres, in 3,000 years of rule, you are the first being to negotiate with me in this manner. The first to refuse gifts and demand less rather than more. This, more than your test results, proves your wisdom. He extended one crystalline hand. I accept your conditions. You will serve on my inner council as a fully human representative. Earth receives protectorate status for 100 years. We will monitor from a distance but not interfere. When that time ends, humanity will be invited to join the galactic community as equals, not subjects. Rachel felt her knees go weak with relief. She'd done it. Earth was safe. However, the Emperor added, you must serve a minimum term of 10 years. Can your human lifespan accommodate this? I'm 27. I can manage 10 years. Then we have an agreement. Welcome to the Inner Council, Counselor Torres. The court bowed. Some looked impressed. Others looked skeptical. A few looked terrified of what humanity might become. Rachel was just exhausted. 3 weeks later, Rachel sat in her apartment in Seattle. Her actual apartment. The one she'd been teleported from wearing pajamas. It felt like a lifetime ago. Her phone, regular Earth phone, not quantum whatever, sat on the table next to a device the size of a quarter. Emergency communicator. Instant connection to the Dominion if Earth needed help or if they needed her. She still worked her day job. Still wrote code. Still grabbed coffee at the place down the street. But twice a month, she teleported to the Dominion for council sessions. Advising the Emperor on conflicts, offering human perspective on problems that had stumped alien minds for years. It was the weirdest double life imaginable. Her phone buzzed. Text from her sister. Still can't believe you met actual aliens and didn't take a single selfie. Rachel smiled. The government had sworn her to secrecy about the details. Official story. First contact had been made, peaceful relations established, nothing to worry about. Rachel's role was classified. She looked out her window at the Seattle skyline. Somewhere up there, beyond the clouds, beyond Earth's atmosphere, the galaxy spun on. Hundreds of species. Thousands of worlds. And humanity had a seat at the table now. Because a bored software developer had downloaded a weird app one Tuesday night. Rachel laughed and opened her laptop. She had code to write. The galaxy could wait.